Why didn't you tell me about going to school?
Um, uh, Actually, I started when I was 5, when we lived in Fulda there. And I went to school 1 month, and then we moved to Kandu. And they wouldn't take me in first grade as a 5-year-old. So I was really disappointed. I had to wait a whole year. But it was not uncommon for my brothers and sisters to start at the age of 5. I guess not everybody did, but I think my parents thought, my dad was pretty, he liked education. And I think if he thought the child was ready, he'd send them at 5. They would send them at 5, my parents would. And if not, at 6, because some of us went to school at 5, some at 6. But anyway, so at Kandu I had to wait a whole year, and I remember being real disappointed. But then the next year I went. I was 6. And I loved it. I loved school. And I loved the teacher, Mrs. Albertson. And she was so kind. She was such a nice lady. Silly. And she was such a kind person. I went there from the 1st through the 4th grade. And I just really liked it a lot. And then when I was 10, we moved to Devil's Lake, and we went to a 1-room schoolhouse. And that was not a good experience at all. The school we were in Kandu was a brick schoolhouse with indoor bathrooms and everything. It was really nice. And then we went to this 1-room schoolhouse with outdoor bathrooms. And just a dinky little 1-room thing, and I didn't like the teacher, and she didn't like me either. She told me one time, she says, you're smart, but you're not smart in the right way. And never liked her after that. So that kind of made school kind of a hardship. And then the 6th grade, I started at St. Mary's in 6th grade, and I had sisters after that, Irish sisters mostly. And I liked going to school there. That was fine. I wasn't used to, everybody being in the same grade in one big room. But it was fun. I made friends and stuff. And then I went through high school, same school.
At St. Mary's?
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite part of school growing up?
I was not a good student. No. History classes. I loved the history classes. We had these Irish nuns that came from Ireland, and they knew a lot of English, British history that were not in the books. It was passed down as tradition. And I had this sister Oliver. She was taught the history classes, and I would just be fascinated with what she had to tell. A lot of the history she talked about was about Henry VIII, and that was it went into that a lot. And then she'd tell us things that weren't in the history books, and it was just fascinating. But history is still a lot of fun. Monty, he's marking everything.
Did you ever celebrate holidays in school?
Um,
Like Valentine's Day or...
yeah. In grade school and high school we didn't. Yeah, we gave Valentines out, sure.
Did you make them in school? Or?
No, we bought them. I think they were a penny a piece or something when I was, that age. We'd buy them for about a penny a piece, and then we'd give them to kids in our room, yeah.
Were you required to bring one for everybody?
No, I don't think so. I think we just sent them to whoever we wanted to. I don't know if I don't remember that much about it if we gave them. I don't think I gave them to everybody.
Christmas at school?
There was always what did we do? I don't think it was at Christmas. It was after Christmas. There was always a program where we'd put on plays and things, but that was after Christmas. It was like in January. But I don't remember that we'd put on anything. There was always something in church. There was always there was a boys' choir back then, and they'd put on, they would sing and they would put on a program. There was always a big program. But then, I think it was like, maybe it wasn't even in January, it might have been in spring or March or something. There was always, something special going on. There was a program of some sort. I remember my mother making me clothes for, certain things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't remember what they were in particular.
Did you have a lot of homework in school?
I don't think we had any in grade school at that time. High school, we did. Yeah, maybe we did like in 7th or 8th grade, but it was very minimal.
Okay.
Very minimal. But high school there was homework, yeah.
What subjects were you taught?
Oh, let's see, in high school, I don't remember the grade school subjects, but we must have had English, composition, and math, and science, and I think that was freshman year. Must have had other stuff. Oh, history. I think we had history every year. Sophomore year, I just don't remember. Junior year, we had typing. You could take shorthand and typing. I didn't take shorthand, I took typing though. And must have taken geometry sophomore year, I think. And then there were other math classes, but I don't remember.
Okay. Did you have music classes?
We had a glee club, yeah. We had a girls' glee club, and I think we had a boys' glee club too, or some kind of singing group. But yeah, we had glee club every year in high school. And we'd enter competitions. There would be like a spring festival, and there'd be duets and trios and a whole chorus. We always participated in that. And also basketball was a big deal. Basketball games.
Did you play?
No, we didn't have girls basketball at that time. But we would follow the boys basketball and sometimes go out of town, and be at the games and stuff. That was a lot of fun. Did that a lot. Mm-hmm. And then we'd have once a month in the wintertime, they called it a lyceum. It would be a program, and we'd have entertainment.
All right, we'll go back into some more about school, if that's all right.
Okay.
You were telling about lyceums.
Mm-hmm. That's a really old-fashioned name. I know it goes way back, but in the 50s, we would have these programs. I think they were once a month, just in the winter time. And we'd have like a hypnotist and different programs like that. But one that I remember was a violinist, and he was so good. He played in our school, and then that night he had another, he played in the memorial building here in Devil's Lake for everybody. Usually they just went from school to school, but this man was so good. And what was his name? Florian something. His name was Florian something, but he was really good. And we went, a friend of mine and I liked it so well, we went that night again and heard him again. But yeah, I don't remember too many of the others, but we always looked forward to them because it would be not a half, but about a fourth of a day of school. You know, we didn't have to go through.
Did you ever have to miss school to help out at home?
No, I never did. No, not by the time I came along. It wasn't necessary anymore.
Okay. Did other children in your classes have to miss to help out?
No, I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Was there ever any tension in your school because of children of different ethnic backgrounds or anything?
No. Not that I can think of. I just remember, like I said in Candu, feeling different,
Right.
you know, than the other kids, because we were different than they were.
Yeah. Okay. What else do you remember about school?
Oh, I guess for me, especially in high school, it was mostly, I went to school mostly to socialize, you know. And because I wasn't a good student, and I wasn't a math student. I always did well in art, of course. And I remember one time we, in English class, the sister who taught English was creative. And so we had to write a outline of a book, I remember. And I illustrated mine with some illustrations. I just got the idea and I thought, I'll do that. And the teacher was so pleased. That was probably the biggest mark I ever got, you know. And it was just, I wasn't sure I should do that because nobody else was doing it, you know. But I decided to do it, and she was real pleased with it. And I got a real good mark that time. But I don't think I have any more memories.
Okay.
Than that.
Well, if people got in trouble in school, how are they disciplined?
Ooh. Like I said, I was taught by Irish nuns from the 6th grade on. I don't know if you've ever heard much about Irish nuns, but they can be pretty tough. And I guess they're worse in Ireland. But the sisters we had were Mercy sisters, and they had a leather belt with a long leather strap hanging down on the side. And didn't happen in high school, but in grade school, I remember a lot of the boys being taken out into the cloakroom or wherever, and the sister would take that leather strap and they had to put their hands out, and she'd hit them to discipline them. I'm sure they didn't do much wrong, but.
How many, you said that you were in a really nice brick schoolhouse at
Can do. Mm-hmm.
How many children were in your classes in that school?
Let's see, when I started in 1st grade, there were 4 of us. And 4 of us all through the 4th grade, as long as I was there. Some of the grades just had 1 or 2.
And you were all in separate rooms?
No, one big room. Yeah. There were 2 rooms in the school, but the teacher and her family, her husband and 2 children lived in the one room during the school year. They lived on a farm the rest of the year. And then just one room was big enough for all the grades. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was the teacher you really liked?
Oh yeah, Mrs. Albertson, yeah. A nice teacher.
Do you remember anything in particular about her?
Well, she never disciplined anybody. You know, if you didn't get something, she'd just go over it until you did. You know, and she was a very kind person. And I remember that there were a couple times when the roads were so bad, you know, that we couldn't. This was before I went to school that first year we were there, and we couldn't get to the school, you know, to pick people up. My parents couldn't get there, my dad couldn't get there. So they had to stay overnight. And I remember thinking, boy, that would be fun. And that happened, you know, occasionally somebody stayed overnight because their parents couldn't come and pick them up. So the teacher was always prepared. And I don't know where my brother was, but I was in school alone that day. And they couldn't come and get me, so I got to stay overnight. And oh, that was fun. I just, it was different, you know. Get to eat different food, and the family was so nice. So.
Is that picking up a lot?
A little bit.
That noise?
Yeah. All right. Was getting an education really important to your family?
I think it was to my dad. He, I don't know what his education was, but he could at one time read and write German and Russian. And he was selected to go to what they call a gymnasium, you know, would be like high school. But I think he had to travel to Odessa, and his mother didn't think that was a good idea, so he never went. But he had been selected, and then you could only go if they selected you to go. Not everybody went to high school in Russia.
So do you think he regretted not being able to?
Oh yeah, you know, because he talked about it, you know.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about school or getting an education?
I guess not. I was never college material, so I never went. But I took art classes, and then I got a job in Bismarck, and then I went to St. Paul because my oldest niece was there, and I knew I needed a bigger town, you know, to get a better job. So I went there, and then I got my first art job there, and I took art classes and stuff.
What were you doing as an artist?
I was a commercial artist for a company called Brown and Bigelow. It was an advertising company. They published calendars, and you being from Minnesota know about Brown and Bigelow. It was a huge company at that time, 5,000 employees. Now it's, you know, windy. Now it's a company of about, I don't know, the company in St. Paul probably has 350 employees, and then sales offices throughout the country. We did basically calendars, playing cards, all kinds of advertising material. You know, it's like this, pens, matchbooks, just stuff like that, you know, that people gave away. The company would buy them and give them away.
Was that something you'd always wanted to do?
Well, I wanted to be an artist. I remember I was about 16 sitting in typing class, and I thought, I've never done anything in my life. And I said, I'm going to be an artist. And I just held on to that. And I did, I just wouldn't let go of that dream. And I didn't even know what a commercial artist really did. And nobody else I knew either. But then when I got to St. Paul, well, there were just tons of jobs, in the this was 59, 60 when I went down there. So I got the job, and I was really happy. I loved the work. It was a lot of fun.
Did your parents support you in that dream? Did they think it was a good idea?
Well, not my mother very much, but my dad did. I would do paintings, and he'd show them, to people who came to the house and stuff, because he did art at one time too, so he could relate to that.
But not so much your mother?
No, she didn't understand it. No, she didn't understand what it was all about. And people would keep telling you can't make a living as an artist, but in commercial art you could, and there was a lot of it at that time, a lot. Because there were no computers, so everything was done by hand, like that would all be done by hand, It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot for a lot of years.
All right. We're going to change topics a little bit.
Okay.
I'd like to hear about the chores you did as a child.
Okay. I was lazy. I remember I was supposed to gather the eggs and close the chicken coop at night. But the chicken coop was a long ways from the house, and I was scared of the dark, and that was one of the things that my brother got mad at me about, because he'd have to go close the chicken coop if I didn't. And then even getting the eggs, sometimes you had to reach under the hen to get the egg, and they'd peck at your hand. They didn't want you taking their eggs.
Were you scared of the hens?
Yeah. Although I liked chickens, but I didn't like them on their nests when they were pecking at you. So. But yeah, I liked all the animals on the farm. I really love animals. But chickens, they would walk around. They'd always be happy. They'd walk around the yard, and they'd pick and choose what they wanted to eat, and they'd be happy. They'd be chasing bugs.
Did you have to help take care of any of the other animals?
Trying to think. I guess once in a while I'd have to take something out to feed the pigs, like some we always had a slop bucket. I guess you don't know what that is, but we had these slop buckets before we had running water. And what was in there was, food that, like lettuce leaves and, potato peelings and stuff like that. And we'd take that out, give it to the pigs. They loved it. They got feed, too. They got good feed, but they got that. What else? I had to help in the garden and feed the baby chicks. And I was supposed to milk a cow, but I never got never got the hang of that. Could never get the hang of that. At that time, we just had one cow just for our needs, for our milk and cream and stuff. And
did you do butter at home?
oh yeah, yeah. We had a thing. It was a thing that had a handle and beaters, and yeah, we made butter by hand like that. Yeah. And then we drink the buttermilk. It was different than the buttermilk you get in a grocery store. Had little bitty pieces of butter in it. It was delicious. That butter was so good. Tasted so good. There's things like that I miss, that homemade butter, the homegrown vegetables, the homemade bread. They're so good. And you took them for granted when you were a kid, but they were so good.
What vegetables did you grow?
We grew a lot of watermelons and muskmelons. My dad loved fruit, so we grew whatever fruit we could. Had strawberries, I think, at one time, and an apple tree. We always had cucumbers, radishes and onions. We always had those winter onions and radishes. They were delicious. And we had peas and carrots and potatoes, green beans, I guess. And one year I asked my mother if we could grow something different, so I remember we grew Swiss chard, but we didn't really know how to prepare it, but all you did really, I guess, was boil it or steam it.
Okay. Did you can a lot of vegetables then?
Oh yeah, vegetables and I think fruit. Yeah, we did can a lot of fruit too, even though we had a freezer at the time. Yeah, we canned a lot of vegetables, made a lot of pickles. And my mother used to pickle carrots. Those are my favorite. Pickled carrots and wax beans. We always had wax beans too, and she would pickle those. Those were good too.
How did she do that? Do you remember what she put in with it, or?
I think the same thing as cucumber pickles. I think so. Yeah. I think she parboiled them a little bit though. She couldn't put them in raw because they were hard. Yeah. And I think the carrots were boiled a little bit too. But they were delicious. I haven't had pickled carrots since then. I don't even know if you'd ever find them anywhere.
Did you have to help with the canning?
Yeah. Well, yeah, somewhat. I don't remember what I did, but I remember helping him.
Were there other foods that you prepared for storage like that? Like, did you smoke meats or?
Oh yeah, We always had bacon and ham that we smoked. In the earlier years, we always butchered a beef and one pig in the fall. And then my dad would make sausage and ham and bacon. And the ham and bacon would, they'd hang out in the smokehouse all winter until we used them up. And I can still see my dad making the sausage. His sausage is still something that I try to find when I buy sausage. But he would have this, this big thing like a bread bowl and make the sausage in there. And he'd go in with 2 fingers and taste the raw sausage. And until he had it seasoned right, it had to be seasoned just right. It was delicious,
Do you know what seasonings he put in?
Well, garlic was one of them. And I think did he throw pickling spice in? It seems to me he threw pickling spice in the meat. I don't know why. I suppose for the dill or something. And I don't know what else. Of course, salt and pepper. But he would make bratwurst, and he would make liver sausage. He would make head cheese and blood sausage. Blood sausage was very rich. So when my mother would cook that, she would just cook small pieces and then cook the bratwurst with it too, because you couldn't eat much of it. It was too rich. And the liver sausage was good. We always ate that cold for breakfast. That's the way she always fixed it. And the head cheese was good. Much better than the commercial stuff. You can get it commercially, but it's not very good.
How did you make that?
Well, it was made with gelatin from the pig's hoofs, but I don't know the procedure. But the difference between my dad's and the commercial stuff was, his was very finely ground, and the commercial stuff is big chunks in the head cheese, and it just doesn't taste the same.
Yeah. When you butchered and did all these things, did neighbors come over and help? Did it become a social event?
No, I don't think it was ever that. Okay. But the whole family, joined in and did it. I can remember being very young and slicing up. We had to sliced up the fat from the pig, and you boiled it down or cooked it down, I should say, for lard. Okay. And I can still remember, I used to love to sit and just, that was my job when I was small, pretty small.
Now, did you also make soap after?
I guess my mother did. I vaguely remember her making lye soap, yeah, just for laundry. Yeah, we use commercial soap to wash with. Yeah.
Were there any other things that your family made for themselves?
Sauerkraut.
Okay.
Yeah, my mother and dad would make sauerkraut. We'd have like a crock, and they'd put a board on top of it and stones. It'd be a big crock full of sauerkraut. And we always had horseradish. And my mother and dad would make that too, and they would be crying because that stuff is hard and tough on you. We always had fresh horseradish. And we ate different German foods. We had sauerkraut and ham and different kinds of noodles. My favorite was an egg noodle my mother made. She'd call them geschnittene Nudler. And it would be an egg noodle. She'd always roll it out, and then put it on the bed to dry for a couple hours, and then when it came time to cook it, she'd cut them up and boil them. They were delicious. Then she'd serve them with brown butter, and then put breadcrumbs in for croutons. And it was just delicious. Pour that over them. I guess that's an old Alsatian recipe, is what I understand. It came from Alsace originally.
You said brown butter?
Yeah. Not melted, browned.
Okay.
Melted is just melted, but this, you brown it, it's clarified butter. Okay. It'd be the same thing. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember any other German foods?
Yeah, she called it Halupsi, was pigs in blanket. A lot of countries have pigs in blanket. They cooked a combination German-Russian food, and they made pachentla, which is a pumpkin, like a pumpkin dessert. That's also Russian. And one of my favorites was, she called them babushka. Babushka means grandma in Russian. But they were little rolls, just little rolls, not very big. And she'd bake them, and then she'd toss them in garlic butter. She'd have a big pan, and then she'd have garlic and butter in there and toss them. And they were just delicious. So it was like, common, and borscht, Ukrainian borscht with vegetables. There's a Russian borscht with just beets. I've had that too, but ours was a Ukrainian version with vegetables, cabbage and beets. You had to have cabbage and beets in it for it to be authentic. Trying to think of what else. Well, she had a way of making, for Easter ham, she would put a bread dough around it and bake the ham, and all the juices would stay inside then of the ham. And then she'd throw the bread dough away after it was baked. And that was really good. And there was I don't know where this recipe came from, but it's a Russian recipe of chicken with a tomato sauce on it, and I think there was a little onion in it. And that was a recipe that came from the Ukraine somewhere. I think it came from the Crimea or somewhere. Because I had Afghanistan chicken one time, and it was the same thing.
So what was your favorite thing she made?
I like the noodles with the brown butter, or that was always my favorite. Yeah. And the borscht. That's very good. I'm not a very big soup eater, but I always enjoyed that. Borscht was very good. About the only soup I really like.
Okay. Did you ever have to help your mom with the cooking?
Yeah, but she would have liked if I would have helped her more, but I would try to help her,
Did you have to help your mom with any other chores inside the house?
As I grew older in my teens, I did a lot of the cleaning. If I was there, if I wasn't away at school, I would do most of the cleaning. And help with the laundry. I did all the ironing and stuff. My mother always had, when her friends would come to visit, they always say how white her towels were. But her trick was to leave them out on the clothesline for hours, and then the sun would bleach them. And they'd be real white.
Any other things you had to help out with around the house?
I think the last year I lived on the farm, I drove the truck at harvest time. Last couple of years, yeah. That was about the only other thing.
I suppose you had plenty of older siblings to help out.
Well, at that time there was just my brother and myself at home for a few years, because my brother Al was in the Air Force, my brother David had gotten married, and Berta had gotten married, so for a few years there were just my brother and I on the farm with my parents. And then they moved into town later on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell me about life on your farms?
Well, I can just remember little bits and pieces, like my brother Morris used to herd they always had to have somebody herding the cows in the summertime. I remember carrying a watermelon out to him. Instead of water, they would bring a watermelon because it was full of water, Bring a watermelon out to him when he was herding the cows. I remember doing that. I remember when we first bought our first combine.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that was in Kandu. That was new, because everywhere, well, where my parents lived before, everybody used a thrash machine. And then when we moved to Kandu, we got combines and stuff. And I remember we used to haul the meals out to them, so they didn't have to waste too much time during harvest time.
Do you ever remember being without electricity?
Oh, yeah. We were out without electricity till I was 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you finally got electricity?
It was really nice. I mean, it was really, my parents bought, we moved to Devil's Lake, that farm in Devil's Lake in 1947. My parents bought their first refrigerator. It was a GE refrigerator. My brother still has that refrigerator. It still runs.
Really?
60 years old.
How did your lives change other than that with electricity?
Well, I think, with lights, like in the wintertime and at night, I don't think we read very much without electricity. When we got electricity, I think we read more and things like that. Other than that, well, I get, it just was it was a big help.
Yeah.
It was a big help.
How about running water? Do you remember getting that?
Oh, yeah. We got that I think about the same time. Yeah, that was a treat. Yeah, because I remember doing dishes and we'd have to heat it up, in the tea kettle on the stove, and that didn't work too good. But, they did it for years and years. Everybody did. So that was much nicer, having a lot of running water in a bathtub.
Yeah. Yeah, how did you take baths before?
We had a tin tub,
Carry water in?
Yeah, carry water in and put it in the bathtub, or that tin tub, I don't know, big round thing. Yeah.
How often did you change water between people?
I don't know. I don't remember that.
Was there a specific order you had to take your baths in?
Well, I just remember my mother and I taking baths in the same water. I don't remember anybody else. Maybe it was just two people, I don't know.
Did your family always have a car that you remember?
Yeah, when I was real small, we had a Model A. And then in Kandu, we got a Plymouth. And I think my dad had mostly Plymouths. His last car was an Oldsmobile. Yeah, but we always had a car, yeah.
When did you learn how to drive it?
Well, I guess I was about 16. And I was trying to learn, but we had a 48 Plymouth with a stick shift. I never did get the hang of that. It wasn't until my brother my dad got in 1954, he got a Oldsmobile with an automatic, transmission. That's when I really learned how to drive. And then my brother got a car too. I drove his car a lot. He would let me drive his car if I washed it for him, so it was a pretty good trade-off.
Okay. When you were younger, how often did you visit a doctor?
Almost never. Almost never.
Did your mother have a lot of home remedies for when you got
Yes. She used liniment and boric acid for everything. But we were never sick. Nobody was ever sick either. She would use a spoonful of sugar with peppermint drops for a stomach ache. And if you had a cut, you'd soak it in boric acid and then maybe put, I think it was during World War II we got mercurochrome. Before that it was iodine. Iodine would sting, and mercurochrome wouldn't. And she used that. And then liniment for sore muscles, if you had sore muscles. So, put liniment on it. Yeah.
How about earaches?
I never had any.
Oh.
Don't remember them anyway.
Okay.
The only thing, I remember my brother and I had measles. And that's the first illness I remember having. And then I never had anything until I had mumps when I was about 11. But we were never sick. I don't remember being sick at all. But my dad, he was kind of into health food and stuff. He liked to eat healthy and stuff. And he would, in the winter time, after the house had been closed up for a long time, he would open the doors and say, "We got to air this place out." And he'd let the cold air come in, And then we were always out playing too, so, we got a lot of fresh air. So I don't remember. Probably had a cold now and then, but I don't remember ever being sick. Hardly ever.
You've mentioned the war a couple times and how it affected products you
Oh,
could get.
yes.
What else do you remember about
Oh,
the
yeah,
war?
we had ration books.
Yeah.
And we could only, you got a ration book for every member in your family. And even though there, quite a few of us at home, we never had enough sugar. We always ran short of sugar. And sometimes flour was a little scarce. I remember we made ice cream with honey sometimes, and baked with honey because there was no sugar. And I remember we used soy flour because there was not enough wheat flour. I don't know how that turned out, if it turned out very good. And what else? Everything was shoes, gas. We were farmers, so you could get, gas easily. You were allowed gas more than anybody, but yeah, I can't remember what else was rationed. Oh, rubber, anything made of rubber. I remember having my first balloon and first bubble gum after the war was over. Not until about 1946 or 40, about 1946. Because nobody had any rubber products. It was all done for the war effort. And even things like Hershey bars were hard to get because they all went overseas to the soldiers.
Did any of your brothers have to serve in the war?
No, my oldest brother was the only one old enough. And he was an electrician with the government. He had a government job. And he traveled around. So he was exempt. Yeah, not my family. None of my family was in the service very much. Just my one brother in the Air Force. And then I had a few nephews in the Army later, during Vietnam.
Do you remember anything else about the war affecting your life?
I'm trying. Oh, yeah, I remember we couldn't get. We had quite a big farm at Kandu during the war, and we couldn't get help because everybody was serving in the service. So the government sent soldiers out to help with the harvest. This was just only during harvest time. So we had soldiers one time for a few days helping with the harvest.
Did they stay at your place?
I don't think they did. I don't remember. I don't remember if they did or not. I don't think they did. I think they brought them out in the morning and then picked them up again in the evening.
Okay. How old were you when they helped about?
Oh, probably 6 or 7, something like that. Maybe. Yeah, because when I was 8, the war was over.
Do you remember the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was 5, I think. Yes, I still remember us sitting around the table that Sunday morning, and the shocked looks on my parents' face. It was just, they were just shocked, because that was pretty close.
Yeah.
They, didn't expect it that close to this country. And we were trying not to get involved in the war, I guess, but
Yeah.
after that we had to.
Do you remember anything else about the war affecting your life?
Oh, I just remember when my brother Simon, when there would be thunder, he'd say, "That's Hitler riding his wagon." Don't ask me why he said that.
Did that scare you?
Yeah, I thought that was true. Because everybody knew who Hitler was, after we got into the war.
Right.
It was a small world then.
Yeah. All right. What was the hardest childhood memory, the most stressful?
The most stressful? I suppose it was, I was too young, like when my sister Tilly died, I was too young for it to affect me. I suppose one of them, was when my brother Morris got kicked by that horse, and we didn't know if he was going to live. That was probably one of the hardest. And then, like I said, being separated from my sister Berta, that was tough. I mean, that was hard. I don't think she even knows that to this day. But that was really hard for me to be separated from her when she went away to school. What else? Then my brother Al, I don't remember what age I was, early teens. When he went, his plane went down, we didn't know for a few days what happened. That was really hard for my mother and my dad.
Can you tell me about your happiest childhood memory?
Happiest. I guess that would be, when we'd go to movies or the fair or Christmas, Easter, that kind of thing. I never enjoyed the work on a farm. Some people do. My brother Morris has always worked, but I've never enjoyed the work on a farm. But I always look forward to Sundays when we do something special. Or school, my early years of school. Those first 4 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else about your childhood that you'd like to add?
I got my notes over there.
Do you want to pause and look at them?
I don't think there's anything in there I didn't tell you.
Okay.
So, I guess that's about it.
Okay. Why do you think it's important to tell your life story?
Well, I really think tradition is important. I really think it's important. And I think that's the only way, we'll keep tradition is by telling these old stories and what happened and stuff. The fact that the Germans from Russia, these people even exist is, amazing that they've been able to keep going all these years. And, some people still speak the language. It's been 200 years since anybody's lived in Germany, so I think it's very interesting to keep the language going. It's like if we were speaking Old English, that's the type of German it is. If we were speaking Old English, it would be the same thing. Yeah, I think it's important to pass it on. I just got a copy of my genealogy, and it goes back to the 1600s in Germany.
Wow.
But there's not, they just got church records is all they had. And they didn't have records before 1600s. I suppose hardly anybody could write. But it's very interesting to read that. It's just, I think it's very important to keep it going. Yeah.
Right.
Actually, what I'd like to do is, they can test your DNA now, and they can find out what nationalities you really are. I would love to do that, because I think there's like some French in there and stuff, but maybe other nationalities. But we were always told we were pure German,
Were your parents proud of the Russian part of their heritage?
I don't think especially, because I remember my dad saying, that the Russians were not very ambitious, and they didn't really work very hard. And from the things I've read, the reason Catherine the Great and Alexander the Second, or the First, brought these Europeans into Russia was to teach them how to farm.
Yeah.
That was the whole object. But I guess Russians really aren't farmers, from my understanding.
All right. Are there any other thoughts or observations you'd like to share with us?
I guess not. Nothing I can think of right now. Probably think of something after you leave. That's usually how it goes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Yeah, thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Fulda, North Dakota. A farm we had there. The road went by this way. School is over here. I can't even spell. Church is over here. And, the road would come in like this to the farmyard. The well was here. And right over here was a house. It was a little brown house, painted brown. Trees here.
How many rooms were in the house?
Not very many. Bedroom here. And there's a porch here. But I mean, it was inside, and didn't extend. And then over here, this was a kitchen in the winter. And summertime, the kitchen was in the basement. Yeah, we had a big room down there. And bedroom over here. This is the girls' bedroom, and two of the boys slept with my parents in their bedroom, and then the kitchen had room to sleep in. This was living room. That's all there was. It was a little house. The original house had burnt down, and my parents brought this over in 1931, I think it was. And over here was the barn. Much bigger than that. And over here was granary. This should have been much further apart. Here there was a garage, separate. And I don't know, over here there's something, but I can't remember. Chicken coop was back here. Somewhere here. That's all I can remember that.
All right. How many years did you live on this farm?
5. I lived here 5 years. We moved when I was 5.
Okay.
And then the next next one would be Candu. And the road went by here. House was way back here. Quite a ways back. Big barn. Real big barn. There's room for cows, pigs, sheep, horses, everything was in that big barn.
And how many animals did you usually keep? How many cows?
Oh,
How many sheep?
at that time, we still had horses for some things, so we had, I don't know how many sheep we had, there were a lot of them. And we must have had 7, 8 cows. No, I don't think we had that many, but 6, 7 cows. And the house is not shaped that way. You want me to picture the rooms in the house? Or?
If you want.
Okay, this is a bedroom. And this would be the kitchen. Oh, there was an entryway, yeah. Kitchen. And here's the dining room. Bedroom here. Bedroom there. Bedroom here. And this was living room here. And back here was a machine shed. And let's see. I'm trying to think. Granary, there's a granary here. You didn't expect them to be this messy, did you?
Oh, no, this is great.
And then I'm trying to think of what order they were in, but we had a chicken coop. Yeah, chicken coop must have been here. And a blacksmith shop. This was actually a blacksmith shop.
Did you use it?
Yeah, they did. Because we had horses, and I think they shoed them.
Did you do any other? Do your brothers do any other work in there or anything?
No, not that I can remember.
All right. Did you have a summer kitchen here too?
No.
Or, all right.
No.
And how many years did you live on this
Oh,
farm?
5 years. 5
So you were
years.
about 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this next one would be Devil's Lake.
Okay.
And the road went by this way. House was here. Had a lot of trees here and here. Here, back here was a bunkhouse, but we used it as a chicken coop for baby chicks.
Okay.
That was just for baby chicks. And then let's see, over right here was a well house. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, smokehouse here. We had a smokehouse too.
Okay.
Actually, this farm was owned by a Colonel Creel who was famous here in the early days. He was out at Fort Totten. And his wife, Alice Creel, bought this land from the Great Northern Railroad. So we had that deed. My brother still has that deed, I think, that tells about that.
That's neat.
And over here, let's see, well house, the barn would have been here. And
Did you still have a lot of animals on this farm?
yeah, we got more cows because we sold milk.
Oh.
And this was a big machine shed. And a granary here. Garage here. And repair shop.
You sold milk?
Yeah, we sold milk to Bridgman Creamery.
Okay.
Another Minnesota company.
And how many years did you live here?
10 years.
Okay.
And then my parents moved to town, and my brother Morris had the farm after that.
And he still lives on this
He
farm?
still lives on that farm. He and my nephew farm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Guess that's about it.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Nothing. I hope. I don't think they're exactly accurate, but
No, it's great.